What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. I'm super happy to see you guys returning for another video for the Sinister Picks movies. This will be the second video out of 3, and I will be posting the third one very shortly. I know it's past October already, but you know, it's okay. We'll still make it work. And it's still going to be out of order a little bit, but all the movies except for the first week or so will get talked about. I did have an amazing October, and I watched every single movie according to the calendar, which was really fun, really cool to relive some of those classics, and I can't wait to talk about them with you guys. So without further ado, let's jump right into these movies. All right, so the first movie I want to talk about is The Descent. Now, The Descent is actually a really underrated movie, and not a lot of people have seen it, but it's still a really good movie nonetheless. So basically, the main story is there's a character that we follow by the name of Sarah. She goes out with a group of her friends, and they're on like an underground cavern expedition. Seems like it's all gonna be fun and games, really cool adventure. And then they find out very quickly that they aren't the only ones down there. There's actually a bunch of humanoid creatures that are living down there, and they're blind, but they can still smell and they can still hear the underground travelers. So one by one, the creatures pick off these people like they're nothing. And then there's a little bit of a conflict between one of the characters, Juno, and Sarah. Juno basically watches another character by the name of Beth, watches her die, then lies to Sarah about that. Well, Sarah gets her revenge, and she actually hits Juno in the leg with a pickaxe before escaping herself. So Juno is actually left to die to be feasted on. Not most pleasant way to go. All right, so the second one I want to talk about is The Forest. Now with The Forest, it takes place actually in a real-life forest that is in the base of Mount Fuji, known as the Aokigahara Forest, which is actually the suicide forest where people go to kill themselves, unfortunately. So there's an American woman named Sarah. I don't know why they're all named Sarah in these scary movies, just go with it. So Sarah gets a call saying that her twin sister Jess, who was a teacher actually in Japan, was seen last going into the suicide forest and hasn't come back. So Sarah has to fly then to Japan and then kind of investigate what happened to her sister. So along the way, Sarah meets a reporter named Aiden, and basically they wind up making fast friends. Sarah tells Aiden about Jess and her mysterious disappearance, and they get a little bit drunk or whatever, and Sarah actually tells Aiden that when they were younger, her father actually killed her mother and then commit suicide himself, leaving Sarah and Jess kind of, you know, by themselves. So Aiden and Sarah travel alongside with one of the park guides known as Michi. Now Michi has told Sarah time and time again that she probably went there to kill herself and to stay on the path, because if she doesn't and there's sadness in her heart, then she'll start to see visions and, you know, bad things can happen. So Sarah didn't want to believe it. She didn't want to believe that Jess would do anything like that. So she tried to investigate further, tried to wait for her, tried to look for her, but instead her visions got the best of her and she actually winds up dying. So, sad story. Hello?
Hello. What's your name?
Why do you want to know my name?
'Cause I want to know who I'm looking at.
What's your favorite scary movie? All right, so one of the movies I want to talk about as well is Scream, the very first one to be exact. So we follow Sydney Prescott, who it's exactly a year since her mom actually was brutally murdered, and there's all of a sudden some random murders that start happening, starting with Casey, as you guys just saw. She's a very terrible actor. But yeah, she kind of gets gutted, and that kind of starts the domino effect of all the people that do wind up getting murdered. So Sydney originally assumes that it's her boyfriend, Billy, the classic bad guy and everything else. But however, when Billy's in jail, she still continues to get these calls. So then she's starting to realize that it's not exactly Billy and that it could be someone else. Is it Stu? Is it Randy? Is it Billy somehow calling from prison? Who knows? No one knows until the very end, when you find out that it is in fact Stu and Billy trying to frame Sydney's father, who was supposed to go out of town but didn't end up making it because they kidnapped him and tied him up. So they were going to try and frame him for the death of Sydney because they were planning on killing her, but their plans were foiled by Gail, Randy, and also Sergeant Dewey. Before we go any further, I want to talk about the rules of horror movies that it's explained by Randy in Scream. So, rule number 1, can't have sex. If you have sex, you're dead. Rule number 2, no drugs, no alcohol. I know, it's a bummer. Rule number 3, never say, I'll be right back, because you won't be right back. Ready? I'll be right back.
Never, ever, ever, under any circumstances, say, I'll be right back. Because you won't be back.
I'm getting another beer. You want one?
Yeah, sure.
I'll be right back!
The next movie I want to talk about is Child's Play. Now, not necessarily Child's Play from the 80s, but rather the Child's Play that we just got in 2019. Now, I know a lot of people didn't really like this interpretation of Chucky. They didn't really like the new Buddy doll or the idea. But if we take a step back and look at the big picture of what it actually was. So we see a factory worker who's very, very overworked and very, very mistreated, who is doing all the computer stuff, the computer chip for the Buddy dolls, who gets actually fired and gets very mistreated before getting fired from his manager. So we see him deleting all of the safety protocols that is installed inside of the Buddy doll, making him allowing him to be able to cuss, do violence, anything bad that the original Buddies weren't allowed to do. So later in the movie, we actually see Andy and his friends watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Chucky analyzes them laughing at people getting hurt. So he automatically assumes pain and violence equals happiness and laughter. So he actually, but as the movie progresses, he gets more brutal and he gets more possessive over Andy, you could say. And it turns into, if he can't have Andy, nobody can, and he'd rather just kill him anyway. The unique thing about the Buddy dolls is that they're able to take over other electronic devices and other electronics to attack for them. And when they're in the middle of a toy store, they do that with drones, other Buddy dolls, the Buddy 2, everything else, and make everything, pretty much the entire toy store, go berserk and kill lots and lots of people. All right, so the next movie I want to talk about is The Grudge. Now, Alright, so in the Grudge movies, I'll have to make another video going further into it, but I, myself, honestly don't fully understand the story. All I do know is that when you die in the grip of rage, a curse is born. So therefore, the Grudge, or better yet known as Kayako, she was actually murdered by her husband because he was jealous and thought she was cheating on him, which she wasn't. And I believe that that's actually the gist of the story. But when that happened, it made a curse on the house. So whoever enters that house, the curse will follow them forever until they're dead. So no one exactly knows how the Grudge actually kills people. She just shows up, she gets right in their face, and then the scene usually ends after that. So it's not really explained how that she actually kills anybody. So we see Kayako as the Grudge, and then we see Toshio as the little boy that is seen throughout the movie and making creepy faces and stuff. So basically what happens is we follow the main character, Karen, who does visit the house, and she's trying to escape the grasp of the Grudge, and also her boyfriend, Doug, I believe it is, who does end up dying by the hands of the Grudge. Mr. Nakagawa tries to burn the house down with gasoline, but is actually unsuccessful because Toshio actually cracks his neck and he doesn't make it. The house does start to burn, but it is put out by the fire department, and Karen is left in the hospital, remained to be haunted by Kayako forever. And she actually ends up dying in the second movie. Spoiler! Alright guys, so the last couple movies I want to talk about is the Annabelle series. Probably a really good series, a continuation of The Conjuring. Now, if you guys don't know the order of the sequence, it actually should go Annabelle 2, which is Annabelle Creation, then the first Annabelle, then actually The Conjuring, and then the new one that just came out, Annabelle Comes Home. So in Annabelle 2, we follow the doll maker, Samuel, and his wife, Esther, and their young daughter, Annabelle. And Annabelle, unfortunately, dies in a car accident, and then the spirit or the demon that was kind of lurking around pretended or acted like Annabelle and asked permission to move into one of the dolls that Samuel had made. Saying yes, they thought it would restore Annabelle's spirit to the house, so that's why they did it in the first place. But then things actually started taking a turn for the worse. Creepy things started happening, and then they realized that this wasn't Annabelle anymore. So they locked Annabelle in a closet and then never spoke of it again, because Esther actually suffered like massive amounts of damage. Like most of her face was like gouged because of the demon. So later we fast forward into the movie where there's an orphanage that closes down. So Sister Charlotte brings these 6 orphan girls to live with Samuel and Esther. The only rule being, do not go into Annabelle's old room. It's forbidden. Of course, one of the girls, youngest, being curious, breaks that rule. Things start happening to her. She actually gets possessed by Annabelle, or the younger spirit of Annabelle. Actually ends up killing Samuel and Esther, and all the other girls escape. And they actually lock Janice, which was the youngest's name. They lock Janice, possessed with Annabelle, inside of the closet, which she winds up escaping from. Now, Janice escapes to an adoption center where she changes her name to Annabelle, go figure, and then she's adopted by the Higgins family, which we see in the first film. Now, if you've watched the first film as well, you'll know that in that film, Annabelle grows up to become part of this into the cult with her boyfriend, and wind up killing her parents, and also trying to take the baby away from Mia and John. So Mia and John end up having their baby, healthy as can be. Her name is Leah. The demon wants the soul of an innocent. Leah, since she's a baby and all, she cannot offer her soul. So it's basically saying we're going to take her soul forcibly, which they can't technically do, or Mia has to give away her soul. Now there's a kind of like a psychic that has, I think she's a psychic, she has like premonitions. Her name is Evelyn. She lost her daughter a long time ago in a car accident that she blamed herself for. And so in the end of the movie of the first Annabelle, she winds up sacrificing her soul to save Leah so that they can grow it into an actual healthy family with no issues, which eventually does help. So this takes us to The Conjuring, which I explained in my last video. If you haven't checked that out, go ahead and do so. And then brings us to the third movie that just came out, Annabelle Comes Home. So it kind of goes to the backstory of after the Conjuring house, the Warrens bring Annabelle home and puts her in the artifact case that says positively do not open. It takes place showing Judy. She's a little bit more grown up from the Conjuring movies, as we can see. But she still has a babysitter. She's really cool, really sweet to Judy. But the babysitter also has a friend who decides to come over and really, really wants to communicate with her father, who also died in a car accident, and she also blamed herself. So she wanted to communicate with her by touching the artifacts, even though she wasn't supposed to. So Judy's babysitter is named Mary, and like I said, she's very, very sweet, and she's really, she takes really, really good care of Judy. However, Mary's friend, Daniela, she's being nosy, and she's like, do you ever see anything when you're over there? Feel any creepiness? And she's like, no, not really. So she's trying to communicate with her dead dad. She blames herself for the accident, but it actually wasn't her fault. She ended up touching all of the artifacts and let Annabelle out of the case by accident, and things just kind of did a domino effect. Whole house got haunted while the Warrens were away, and here we are left with the story. Long story short, Judy outsmarted everything. Judy is the one that put everything back the way it came and locked away the evil again. So Annabelle was back in her case, not bothering anybody. Daniela, I'm sure, learned her lesson not to touch possessed artifacts. And Mary, I doubt if she babysat ever again for Judy. Alright guys, so that's the end of the video for Sinister Picks Chapter 2, you could say. Check out number 3 coming up very, very soon. I'm already in the process of recording as I'm doing this one too. So make sure to check that out. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.